hospital epitomizes the power of healthcare in the 20th century. In the Middle Ages, the power was with the church. So cathedrals were the great buildings. In the 19th century, even though there were hospitals, the railway station was the great building in the inner city. But in the 20th century, probably the hospital, more than any other type of building, demonstrates what we're proud of and what we achieved. But what's the future of the hospital? Obviously, a hospital needs to continue doing what a hospital does at the moment, offering high technology treatment that can only be delivered in a secure setting: hip replacement, coronary artery bypass grafting, transplantation. And we see some groups of patients who only get treatment in a hospital. Accidents, for example. If you have a broken leg, you go to hospital. But what we've seen now emerge is a more complex type of health care need. People, often in their 70s, 80s and 90s, with multiple conditions and long-term needs, long-term conditions. And most of their care is actually self-care, what they do for themselves, supported by their family and by family medicine or general practice. Now, the specialist service in the hospital still has a very great contribution to make for these type of people, but they have to be referred to get that contribution from the hospital. And we know there's huge variation in referral. So what's the future of the hospital? Well, firstly, we always talk about the hospital service. The word hospital by itself implies the buildings, the real estate. But a hospital service implies the value it gives to the population and to individuals. So the hospital service. As I said, some hospital services are accessed by visiting the real estate, by coming to hospital. But increasingly we'll look for other ways of using the skills and knowledge of those people who work in hospitals. In the 20th century, the great technological revolution was the antibiotic, the artificial hip, the MRI machine. But the revolutionary technology for the 21st century is this, the smartphone. This allows us to develop the hospital service as a knowledge service. Either people can contact the hospital directly, or we can send them reminders, or we can do things like turn all the letters from hospitals into emails and send them to people. And probably even more important, all the lab reports, all the drugs that are prescribed can be accompanied by information from the people who work in the hospital service. So this changes the relationship between the patient and the service. Now, we call this population healthcare, and we're very pleased to be working with you on the development of a centre for population healthcare. It means that doctors practice population medicine. The specialists practice population medicine. Obviously, if a patient comes, then they treat that patient as they've always done. But increasingly, we are helping doctors and other professionals think, how many people are there in the population we serve who've got this condition? How could I reach them with knowledge, with support? How can I use this? How can we support pharmacists out in the population? For much of the frontline service of support is given by them. So what we see is a future in which there will be increasing pressure on hospital services. That pressure means we have to get more value from the resources available. And one way of doing that is to see the hospital as a knowledge service. Not only getting more value from the knowledge of the people working within the hospital, but also reducing the amount of low value care that takes place elsewhere. We can also see the hospital playing a leading role in system development, the system for people with rheumatoid arthritis who live in your part of Madrid. A system, a set of activities with a common set of objectives. The system delivered by a network, and the Clínico San Carlos will play a vitally important part in that network. We say it's a network, not a hub, and spokes to the health centres. The health centres are equally important, but the intelligence, the knowledge will come from the hospital. So, for the future, we see hospitals as vitally important, but we see them not only as real estate, but as the major driving force of the networks that deliver systems of care. I'm very sorry I can't be with you. My oldest friend's son is being married. That's the reason I'm not with you. But we look forward very much to working with the team in Clínico San Carlos on the transformation of healthcare, the transformation of hospital services from being located only in buildings to working on the web.